Assalamu alaikum to all the viewers. I'd like to welcome you to LALJI'S podcast, episode number 4. Finally, I know that we've been a couple of weeks late, but we've made sure that we've brought you in a bit of a banger for today's podcast for sure. Guys, you know what? I've been receiving a lot of feedback from various people on WhatsApp and all social media platforms. Some amazing feedback from people, some amazing suggestions as well. And I'd like to just first of all, I'd like to thank you all for continuously supporting us and giving us your feedback, and also just interacting as the shows have gone on, the comments that we've displayed, and some of the feedback that I've received is really overwhelming, and I'd like to I really appreciate it. Me and Nisam appreciate it together, and we'd like to thank you all. And another thing as well I'd like to say is that if there's any sort of suggestions that you have, if there's any sort of suggestion you have also for guests that we can bring on, there might be some guests that we haven't even thought about. Please definitely put them in the comments below. If you just follow me on all my social media platforms, or Nisam himself, you can just message us, DM us, or privately message us, and we'll definitely take all these things on board for sure. So that's first. So we appreciate all the feedback. We appreciate all the support that you guys are giving us. I'd love for you guys, it takes 2 seconds. If you can just, hit that subscribe button right there on the bottom of your screen, I'd really much appreciate this, because the thing is, when I see your support, and when me and Nisam seeing your support, it's just motivating us even more. And the more and more you guys show us your support, the more and more that, we can improve and bring better content for you guys in the future, inshallah. Nisam?
I'll just carry on in Urdu as we traditionally do. I mean, जैसे अभी आवाज ने आपके सामने अभी मुख्तसर इंग्लिश में बताया कि जाहिर है ये सबसे पहले आपको बताते चलें कि ये इस पॉडकास्ट की 4थी एपिसोड है, और हमें पता है कि हम 2 हफ्ते लेट हैं, और इसका एहसास हमें लोगों ने करवाया भी। पिछले हफ्ते भी और उससे पिछले हफ्ते भी हमें लोगों की कॉल्स आई, और उन्होंने शिकवा भी किया, और उन्होंने पूछा भी कि ये पॉडकास्ट क्यों नहीं हो रही। बस कुछ मसले थी, उस वजह से हमें डिले करना पड़ा, लेकिन उसको अब बेहतर करने के लिए, उसका हक अदा करने के लिए आज हमारे पास बेहतरीन गेस्ट हैं, जिनको हम आपके सामने अभी पेश करेंगे और उनको इंट्रोड्यूस कराएंगे। लेकिन एक मैसेज जो आपके सामने हम पेश करना चाहते हैं कि पिछले पॉडकास्ट में आपने हमारे साथ शिरकत की सवालों के अंदाज में, और आप लोगों ने कमेंट्स भेजे, आप लोगों ने हमें सजेशंस भेजे, और इस सिलसिले को रुकना नहीं चाहिए। आप हमारे साथ इसमें ताउन करें और हमारे साथ इस सिलसिले में आगे बढ़ते रहें। अगर आपके पास कुछ जहन में आइडियाज हैं जो आप लोग देखना चाहते हैं, हमारे साथ जरूर शेयर करें, क्योंकि हम इस कम्युनिटी को आगे बढ़ाना चाहते हैं आप लोगों के साथ, और हम चाहते हैं कि जो चीजें आप लोग देखना चाहते हैं वो हम आपके सामने लेके आए। तो बस ये बात है। आज के इस पॉडकास्ट में हमारे साथ शामिल रहिएगा, इंशाल्लाह बहुत अच्छी गुफ्तगू होने वाली है। काफी मुख्तसर, काफी डिफरेंट पहलू से आपको इस पॉडकास्ट में कॉन्वर्सेशंस नजर आएंगी। तो इंशाल्लाह देखते रहें और इस पॉडकास्ट में अपना साथ में शरीक हों।
Inshallah. So moving on to today's podcast, guys. Thank you so much. We've already got 59 viewers, guys. Please, if we can get today, we want to reach. We were saying to me and Nisam was having a conversation before. We were talking about the podcast and how many viewers we've had in the past, guys. Today, inshallah, if you guys can share this podcast, because as soon as you share that link to other people, I'm sure there's a lot of people that will benefit from today's podcast with the guests that we have. Some very exciting. Please share that podcast, the link of the podcast, and inshallah, if we can reach this to 100 today, that would be much appreciated. I'm sure
that was our own personal target that we thought of, but inshallah we can. It's not a competition in that sense, but of course, the more the merrier, as they say.
Nisam, so normally I normally control the sort of like introductions of the guests,
right?
Of a special guest, but today I'll take the honors today.
Oh, really? Putting a big responsibility on me there. Okay, so as you're all aware, those of you that have tuned in now and are with us on this podcast, I mean, to be honestly speaking, there's not a lot of introduction that's needed in terms of our main guest, Fatemah Ladak. But those of you who are not aware of much, or those of you who don't know her, I'll give a little bit of an introduction. Obviously, I don't want to give away too much because we want to talk to Fatima herself and get to know a lot of stuff. But Fatima is one of the very few talents, you can say, in the world, female-wise, that has started at such a young age, mashallah. And it's something that you will see in the conversation later on as well, that will link back to subtopics that we have discussed in the past in terms of upbringing, in terms of passion, in terms of niyat, in terms of maqsad. And mashallah, we'll see this in what Fatima has to say today. But mashallah, today Fatima is at a stage where she is about to release her 15th volume. And that's mashallah a very, very big number and
Amazing.
very big thing to be proud of, mashallah, at such a young age. So you're all aware Fatima is, mashallah, a young lady, and the fact that she's already has 15 albums and volumes
Yeah.
shows that she has started at a very, very young age. And to start something at that young age and keep progressing on that further and further in life and coming to a stage now where she is now, you can see what a crazy journey she must have had, and the kind of input she must have had from her family, with the journey she's been together, uh, the journey she's been through, the struggles she's been through, and what she's gone through in mashallah to where she is today. And I won't go much into detail, but we'll leave it further on for Fatima. But mashallah, she's an Azadar lady that's not just represented her family or her town or her idara, just in the UK or in Europe. She's traveled all around the world, whether that's for ziyarat, whether that's for ayam azar, whether that's for any religious reason. She's traveled the world around, mashallah, and has made her family and her parents proud, and has certainly made us in Birmingham proud as well with her um, input and the way she's been involved in Azadari in general. So not, I think that's pretty much enough for now. And we'd like to introduce you to Fatemah Ladak. Assalamu alaikum, Fatemah. How are you doing?
Alaikum salam. I'm well, thank you. How are you?
Not too bad, thank you. How
Thank
you
you for
keeping during
having us.
lockdown?
Firstly, you know,
No
it's a real
problem.
honor and a real privilege to be here with you guys today. And yeah, thank you so much for your kind words. You know, that's really, really,
No.
really sweet of you. Much appreciated. Yes, I'll just give a little introduction as to how I started
Yeah,
out. As you know, you mentioned, yeah, it was from a very young age, and you know, firstly, that's down to, you know, to God, to Ahlul Bayt, and you know, to my parents.
definitely.
Without them, I wouldn't be what I am today. And I think, you know, you
Yeah,
can all attest to that. That you know, the way we are, the reason why we are, is because of our parents.
definitely.
So yeah, I'll tell you a bit of a story. I mean, I was 6 years old when I first recited Anoha. And I
Wow.
think it was at some point in Muharram where, you know, my dad and my brother were practicing a specific Noha, and it was Sham Ke Zindan Mein. I don't know if you guys remember that.
Okay.
Yeah, and I'd been listening to them, you know, I'd been watching them, you know, I was little, I didn't really understand much. And heard the tune, you know, and then my dad came into the living room one day. I was watching TV, and he handed me this paper, and he said, "Okay, read." And that's literally all it was. He handed me this paper. He said, "You've heard us. I know you've been listening. Read." And I did, and that's sort of
Yeah,
how it started. And that was the first Noha I read, you know, live in the ladies' mosque for one of the majlises. And I remember it vividly, you know, even though I was 6 years old. I remember it vividly because I feel like that was where it all started, if that makes sense. That was the
yeah,
sort of integral part to this journey. And I've still got a long way to go, believe you me, you know. But that was basically where it all started. And yeah, I mean, we've been brought up in an Azadari household. I'm sure, you know, my brother will agree,
yeah,
whereby there was always programs, you know, always reciting. Our grandparents used to recite, parents. And I'm very fortunate and blessed that, you know, I've had the support of my parents through it all.
yeah,
Yeah, I mean, there are role models, you know, my brother, my dad, my mom. There are role models, and they're really the reason why I got into this, because they nurtured that passion that they saw that I had.
And I think that's a very big blessing indeed as well. Like a lot of the times we notice that you have people where they have influences or inspirations from external people or people, but mashallah, you've had support and influence from your dad, your brother, mashallah, and obviously we'll go into detail later on in regards to their contributions. But obviously, that's a very, very big blessing indeed to have that in the family, because I think you'll agree it makes life much easier with all the stuff that we have to go through as a reciter.
Definitely.
Yeah, for sure. And you know what? There's a lot more things that we are going to dive into. But before Fatima, before we go into your lifestyle and we want to basically get into your brain today. That's the whole point of this. We want all the viewers to see how you think and your opinions about things and what has got you to where you are today. Alhamdulillah, with the help of Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala. Sure, we'll get into those things. But first, let me just introduce the other guests, because I know a lot of people get to know about Fatima, but we do have two other guests with us today that we need to definitely address. And the first one I'd like to introduce is obviously the main man himself. Well, for me anyway. The thing is, he goes by the name of Mahmood Ladak. Which he's not only just the father of Fatemah Ladak, as to I'm sure he's like announced like that quite a lot, but he's also my family friend, my uncle. Literally, I call him Mahmood Chacha. Literally, is someone that I look up to. Is someone that has played a big role in my life, and I know Misim can also speak for himself as well.
Definitely for all of us.
Very young age. Assalamu alaikum, Mahmood Chacha. How are you doing?
Wa alaikum salam. Alhamdulillah, everything is good. Thank you. Thank you very much for having us. It's an honor and a privilege to be there with you. And it's nice to see you youngsters, so to say, moving on from where you first were and getting into these podcasts and inviting people and individuals. And alhamdulillah, you're doing a very good, mashallah, very good job.
Thank you, Mahmood. Thank you so much. Guys, before I carry on, we are 99 viewers. One more for 100, one more. So I'm sure just one WhatsApp to another person will
be the lucky one.
But yeah, Mahmood, you know what? We are going to pick your brains out today as well, because we know with the experience that you've got, alhamdulillah, now, and not only just with yourself being a reciter as well from a very young age, but also experience on leading and coaching as well, youngsters, not just Fatima, others as well. I mean, you've got your other son as well, which we'll introduce. Well, your son, the only to introduce as well. But who's also now an icon to a lot of people out there in the sort of different department of Noah Khani. But we definitely want to pick out your brains as well. Alongside Fatima, a bit more about how your journey was and what the point to where you said, I'm going to concentrate on now, bringing Fatima up, raise her up, to go towards this path at that point, and when you sort of decided to take it on that level. I mean, do you have any answers for that now?
Sorry,
can you give us a bit of information on how
sure. Basically, of course I can. I mean, what I would say to other parents, because obviously I've seen my children grow up in this environment, what I would say to other parents and advise them that if your children, no matter what they are reciting, how they are reciting, if they have an interest in doing the zikr wal bayt, in reciting any form of nawaz, qasidas, mankabats, or duas, or anything of that, encourage them as much as you can from a young age, because it starts from home. Then it leads to other avenues, and doors eventually open up for you. So for all parents out there, encourage your children as much as you can and support them. And you'll be surprised. You'll be surprised at what kind of bond it is. You get a different kind of bond with your children from that, and it's emotional at the same time. It's very rewarding, and the izzat and the respect you get from this is unmeasurable. So that is the advice to the parents. Encourage your children as much as you can and support them and guide them and seek support from others that know. That's another thing. Sometimes we don't know which angle to go from. A prime example I'll give you with Fatima when she was young. When she was young, She started off reciting at a very early age, like she said, but we recognized that there was a talent there. My other son Shahid, he's more senior to Fatima, and he was reciting before Fatima, a long time before Fatima. So she grew up in this environment where everybody was reciting. And to take that one step further, because we saw the talent in Fatima, there were a lot of requests from people to say, listen, why don't you do some recordings? Now, in those days, not many females were recording albums, as you can recall. I'm going back 15 years now.
Yeah, that's right.
And we living in the West, and our children brought up here in the West, I didn't have a clue as to how to go about it. You know, where do I seek the support from? Where do we go? And Alhamdulillah, you know, if your niyat is there, the doors open up for you. And we had Shahid by Shahid Balkistani. You guys are all aware of him. And he's played a huge, major part in the upbringing of Fatima and supporting and guiding her through this. So Shahid, without Shahid uncle, Fatima calls him Shahid uncle. Without Shahid Bhai, I don't think we would be here right now. Fatima would not be here where she is today. She's had support from other individuals as well, which I'll leave Fatima to ponder on. But what I'm trying to say is, you know, don't be silent. If your children are there, they need support, there's always somebody there to help you. So that is my advice for the parents.
And you know that is some, that is some, you know, that's huge advice, and that's you know, I think parents that are watching this, you know, right now, you know, they can take that on board. That, you know, it's a lot of it comes from the support of our parents and our elders. That makes us carry on. It's not something that, you know, without that support, without that drive, it's not something that, you know, that we'd be doing today with such passion and such love.
100% true. Sure. And I think that's where we can see the beauty of this conversation today as well, where we see different kind of aspects from not even just one generation, from different generations, how they see it, and obviously they've seen it from their perspective at different times, and we being a new generation, and how they're still involved in every certain way. No, that was amazing. And Mahmood Uncle mentioned Shahid Balkistani, but I think there's another very important Shahid that we need to speak about, and that's Fatima's elder brother. And I mean, there's a lot of people that will know Shahid as well as they know Mahmood Uncle and Fatima. And as Mahmood Uncle already said, you know, him being the first child. And Shahid, a quick introduction. I think Shahid is the beautiful side in the family that gives, even experience-wise, a different kind of aspect in the family, because his involvement more towards the Sangat side of Azadari, the Sangat Noakhani, the Sangat Nizam. So having that, I think, is a major factor in the diversity in the family, Masha, as well. And I think that reflects very beautifully in Fatima's style in Noakhani as well. And I'm sure that's something you, Fatima, must have picked up seeing growing up when you seen Shahid as well.
Definitely, 100%.
You know, there's obviously a lot of conversations that we will have with Shahid as well in regards to his involvement in Azadari and the family, and in the Sangat that everyone will know as Anjuman-e-Pur Sadarane Imam Zamana al-Islam. So without further ado, let's introduce you to Shahid Ladak. Assalamu alaikum ya Ali Madad Shahid, how are you doing?
Wa alaikum salam wa alaikum. Thank you guys, Abbas, Misam. Thank you very much, a sincere thank you and warm, heartfelt sort of honor for us to be here. I think, you know, you're doing a fantastic job. Your schedules are very busy already in terms of, you know, the duty that we are giving, or that you are solely giving. And I think it's a fantastic dimension that you guys have added in terms of the duty to Ya Aba Abdullah. And may Mullah give you tawfiq to carry on. You know, it's the only way in terms of what you guys do, but it's a fantastic addition. And hopefully it will also bring more individuals that maybe aren't already where they want to be, and bring them forward in terms of the love of Ahlul Bayt.
No, most certainly, and that's very beautiful said. And Shahid, I mean, we asked Fatima, we asked Mahmood Uncle already, so we'd like a little bit of, though it's very, you know, people think, oh, it's very cliche asking everybody, but because this is more of a podcast and more of a session where people actually want to get to know you. So obviously, as we asked Fatima and Mahmood uncle, give us a little bit of an insight from your side, growing up in the family in regards to Mahmood uncle and Fatima, and your own involvement within obviously Azadari as well.
There's a lot of questions to answer there, but I'll try my best to keep it as.
No, just start with one. That's fine. We go into them later on.
I think Fatima, mentioned some of the points before, and just to echo that, yes, no doubt, Azadari was a foundation with our household from a very young age. It was something that we were exposed to, and I think where my story and Fatima's story slightly differs is that, and I've probably never said this to her, but talents that we find in people like Abbas and Fatima, they're not man-made talents. Those are talents that are given from above. I think I'm keeping you more so in my bracket.
No, that's fine.
We we're persistent, we try, we have the intentions, and I've always said to you guys, as leading you from a Noakhani perspective when we recite collectively, that there's no massive tremendous aspect that we have done to deserve the respect that we have. There's been many times where we may only be 50% prepared. We don't know Noha well. We may not know the poetry. We may not know the tunes. And I've always said to you as motivation, as long as you have the clean niyyah, once you are there at that platform, even if we're 60% ready, 40%, comes from above. And like I said, I think my story slightly differs with Fatima because she was a God-gifted talent from a very young age. I mean, I know she said 6. I think we may have even sort of identified some aspects of it by the age of 4 or 5. And the way I see it, she was given this responsibility from a very young age, and not every human can handle that responsibility. And I think later we'll talk about the status, the maqam of an azadar, of a madakhan. But like I said, it was something that was really in our household from a very young age. And then the journey that we had really threw us into the deep end, if we can say. Initially it was very minimal. Muharram, any shahadats that happened, we would be going to mosque as usual. But then rather than it becoming something just that was done on a periodic basis, it was something that then became instilled within us literally on a daily basis. In terms of we talk about Anjuman Sadar Imam Zamana, which is again the group that yourself, myself, Abbas, my father, and some of our other esteemed associates we're all part of, and we'll touch on that slightly later on maybe. But yeah, I think that's really the difference in terms of where we are. Again, maybe I'm probably a bit more known in terms of reciting in groups. So we've mentioned, and I know you've had previous podcasts where you spoke with Brother Hussein Virji, and salams to him if he is watching, is the fact that I'm not so much in line with reciting in solo, although I am requested a number of times, and maybe I did do many years ago. But I think the atmosphere, the contribution, the buzz that we get from reciting as a group, I would like to ask you guys, even though I know you guys are questioning us, Abbas, firstly, yes, I know you guys are focused in terms of reciting alone, whether that's Manqabat Khani, that's Noha Khani. Again, a lot of work goes into compositions in terms of shairi as well, and massive amounts of time. But just to get your input, and I will start with Abbas, in terms of when we're reciting in groups, just give us a bit of a perspective of what that does for you personally.
That's an interesting question. Kind of put me on the spot here. Normally I'm the one asking questions right now.
That's what I'm
but you know what? It's an interesting question because I always get asked this question as well. And I've heard rumors as well that apparently Sangat sort of Noakhani, which is what I've been heavily involved in. Being around sort of the Punjabi crowd from a very young age, going to Hussainiya, and being around Shahid and my own brother and a lot of respected elders that I can't name everyone for now. I'm sorry if I've missed you. But there's all the theory that side of sort of Noakhani ruins your solo sort of Noakhani. But in essence, for me personally, Shahid, and everyone watching, the Sangat Noakhani is what shaped my solo Noakhani, and that's something that I've learned as I've grown up and developed, and it's something that I'm still carrying on doing. I mean, there's two different things: Sangat Noakhani and solo Noakhani, solo Manqabat Khan. It's two completely different things, different techniques of your voice that you use, different ways of reciting, being able to sort of form a group and then, you know, bringing out your strengths and hiding your weaknesses, so other people bring out their strengths in the group is different to people alone, and it's just you and the mic. So for sure, for me personally, Sangat Noakhani has definitely helped me, not just in terms of getting along with the people and shaping my and you know, being part of a group and communication skills, whatever, but also in terms of my own voice, in terms of riyadh, stuff like that. A lot of more is required in Sangat Noakhani. So when a lot of stuff is done on higher pitches, on higher kharaj and higher scales. So when you're continuously doing that every single day or every other day and practicing and then reciting live, it's having an effect on you, shaping your voice when you're reciting solo. I think I think you know where I'm coming from, because obviously you've done both too 100%. As well. Yeah, Fatima's also done both too as well. So yeah. I'm sure Fatima, do you see where I'm coming from, or for you has it been any different?
I mean, the main sort of introduction to Sangat Matam for me was you guys. I mean, you know, during Muharram, you guys would, and this is from a young age as well, you know, Appiz has been around for a little while now. And I remember, you know, you guys used to come over, especially during the 10 days of Muharram, and you'd have practices, you know, what time, it was so late at night, you know, you guys would be around till morning. And I'd sit on the stairs and I'd listen to you. And yeah, I don't know if I've ever told you this, but I used to sit on the stairs and I used to listen. And I think for me, like my dad said, you know, it starts at home, but community is home, and community is key as well in you know, our upbringing and molding us.
100%.
And so for us, we were very privileged because obviously we're Khoja, we attended Mahfil Abbas in Birmingham. Well, and we also attended Hussainiya Imam Baga, where majority is Pakistani. There's more Punjabi Nohas being recited, more Sangat Matam. And I think that's where my passion for, say, you know, Ravi Road, Gatri Bawa, Kanta Sad, it all came from there, really. Whereas when you take it to Clifton, you know, you've got Saf Matam, you've got old style East African Nohas being recited. You know, you've got your old school Nadeem Sarwar uncle, you know, legendary Shahid Baltistani, Mir Hassan Mir, you know. And I think that really shaped me because I was able to then diversify my style, if that makes sense. Because, you know, you listen to certain things and you pick things up, and that's then your output, if that makes sense. So because I was so heavily involved, you know, in the Sangati Matam from the Hussainiya side of things, you know, we had our own Anjuman there. That's where I think it derived from for me, and that's where it really tied into the fact that yes, you know, you love being part of the halqa and doing matam, you know, you love reciting Punjabi nohas and Sangati nohas, but you've also got your roots, and so I think that really molded me as a person as well, and that really diversified my style, if that makes sense.
And I think that's what it is, you know, the bottom line, diversity. I mean, as Shahid asked us, and I'd like to kind of extend on both of your points. Not obviously repeating what you two have already said, and you know, you two have said probably most of it, but I think alongside with the Sangat side of it, not only does it teach you in terms of experience, I think it disciplines you a lot as well. It disciplines you on a lot of things in terms of, I mean, I'll give you a life example. You might have the best football player in the world, and stats-wise, I might be the best. But if you put them together in a team as a team achievement, that's another step and another goal to achieve something with the team. And there's completely different targets. They're completely, as Abba said earlier on, solo reciting, it's at the end of the day, you're there by yourself. Yes, you might have a couple of people there as support for you, but in group Azadari, in group Noakhani, it's all about playing your strengths and making sure that you deliver 100%. And there, you have a certain margin as well. But I think the love Shahid uses buzz, and in the modern word buzz, yes, there's something that you can't compare with it, because it's something else. It's something that we kind of spoke about on the first podcast as well. When you're involved in a group recitation, even the sound and the volume and the impact of that whole atmosphere at that time, even you as a Noah Khan, it's overwhelming. times where you kind of completely phase out and are somewhere else. And because of this, I would say we've had as Apis and me and Abbas being the youngest as this in this Sangat, we've had experiences and we've had the privileges to be at places and recite with different groups that a lot of people would love to. And you know what? It's a lot of the times it's unbelievable to think what we have gone through as a Sangat. So yes, it's a completely different field. So that's the kind of way I would kind of answer what Shahid said.
Yeah.
I think
Fatemah,
just
go on, Shahid.
No, I'll let you carry on, Abbas.
No problem, please.
I think just to conclude on that, I think, Misam, you touched on something very important. And I think you learn a lot about Farsh Azhar when you're in that environment. You learn the respect of an Azadar, of an Khan. You learn the tarbiyat, the kirdar, as what an Azadar of Imam Hussain. Because let's not forget, when us as individuals, whether we've done it collectively or individually, when we have chosen to carry this obligation, this responsibility, it comes with responsibilities. And I think you guys being more in the public eye, a lot more than what I would be, you guys understand more of what that means in terms of when you're a Mother Khan of Imam Hussain, then that brings certain things with it. But I think very, very good answers. I was hoping, I think I was pushing for those answers. So Abbas,
I just wanted to remind the viewers, please go ahead and comment your questions on the chat, because if the questions are useful for yourself, they're most likely going to be useful for other people as well. And we've got Mahmood uncle, we've got Fatima, we've got Shahid that can answer these questions, I'm sure, quite well for you. So please keep those comments coming in, keep sharing the link, and I'm all well with the viewers that we've got ones so far. Fatima, look, I know Mahmood uncle's been sitting there quietly, but I know you don't. If you don't mind, I'm gonna bring you in. But I just want to go into the roots of Fatima a bit more, which I'm sure you'll be able to sort of, cut me off as the conversation goes on. Fatima, I want to go back to you because, Shahid mentioned about responsibility. Of a reciter. Now, that's something that reciters that sort of have created an image for themselves, you can say, have had to sort of take on board, from people from, normally happens when you're sort of quite older. Let's be honest, like, in your sort of late 20s or even like 30s going on. But like Mahmood Chacha mentioned and Misa mentioned, this is your 15th album coming out, which just surprises me, like, because of your age as well. What, like, taking that early responsibility from that age, like, I know you had your dad there, but there must have been a point where then obviously you had to sort of take that on yourself, if you know what I mean. And I'm sure Mahmood Chacha's got a lot of things going on in his head right now, which he probably wants to burst out saying. But before Mahmood Chacha comes in, can you just sort of, I'd love to know, like, how did you handle that sort of pressure? Because it is pressure at the end of the day. What was your sort of ways of handling that pressure?
I mean, I think the key point to note here is, at the end of the day, we are ambassadors for the zikr of Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. I think it's a key point to sort of say, when you take on this role, when you sort of immerse yourself, I mean, it doesn't even have to be mankabat khani, khani. It could be cooking in the kitchen, serving tea, anything that it is. We are ambassadors for Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Now, touching back on your point about responsibility, I mean, it comes with its challenges, because reciting is, although I immerse my life in it and I live for it, it is one part of my life. We've all got our work lives, our social lives as well. And reciting is it's our world, but it's one of our worlds, if that makes sense. I think you guys will agree with me. And so that responsibility, yes, it does come with its challenges. And you do really need to be mindful, more mindful than most, I think. Just because of the responsibility that you do carry, the image that, like you said, you create for yourself. People look up to you, people want to know how you came about this, how you became like this. And I think it's difficult, but like I said, it's important to remember that we are ambassadors, and like my brother said, any struggles that we face, I'm a firm believer that Mola and Bibi have your back. Yeah.
No.
And
Most certainly.
that's even if, you know, it struggles with anything, not even just pressures of, you know, having that responsibility, but it comes from above. That help, that strength in any sort of challenge, it comes from above. And that's what gets me through it, that, you know what, I've been put on this earth to do this is how I choose to give my service to them, and I'm going to carry it out to the best of my abilities. Yes, I'm a human being, I will make mistakes, I will slip up, you know, I will, you know, there will be times that some people might think, okay, you know, that's not what she should be doing, but at the end of the day, I'm trying, you know, we're all trying. And I think that's the key point here. And, you know, I'm, like I said earlier, I'm nowhere near where I want to be. And that's not just in my reciting aspect of my life, but just generally, you know, and we grow and we learn. And I think that's just the key thing to remember, that that's what we were put here to do. And we've just got to try our best.
And I think that goes back to our point that we've pretty much raised in every conversation, every podcast that we have, is remembering, you know, making sure that we remember our maqsad, what you just said as well. You know, I mean, yes, hearing this, and you know, this is great piece of advice, and what's coming from you, Fatima, from Shahid, and from Mahmood uncle, because yes, you had the passion, and the fact that you even had the sense of responsibility at such a young age is even a blessing. You know what Abbas said, you know, this, you can just see that you were made for this, because a lot of people
and that also, sorry to cut you off, but that's where Mahmood uncle comes in, isn't it? I think personally, and
exactly.
obviously
The guidance.
not even forgetting Sabra auntie as well. Obviously, like your mom's played a big part in your career as well, you know. But this is where, like, sorry to cut you off, Mason, but this is where I wanted to get your insight of things. Like, so obviously Fatima reciting since the age of when? 7, 8? What was it?
6.
6 years old.
Yeah.
6 years old, which is really, really young. I want you to, you know, seeing Fatima grow and then developing into like a mature teenager and stuff like that. What was at what point, like, she's built a beautiful life for herself now, and even her aqidah shows that, you know, it is what it is because of the parents, because of upbringing, what you taught her.
100%.
How did you sort of balance that? Like, how did you sort of keep that in check with, you know, with everything else that's going on with their life, education, you know, personal life? How did you sort of, like, you know, raise someone to sort of have that frame of mind and
keep that perfect balance with everything?
Yeah, I think there's a couple of very good questions that have come up on
we're going to get to them.
Yeah, and what I'm going to say tallies in with some of these questions about is it fair to put on such pressure on a child at that age? One of the parents has commented here, you know, I'm afraid that it maybe put too much pressure on the children at that age, and how it would affect them. My answer to that is there's a balance, fine balance that you have to walk on. Yeah. Initially, when they start at an early age, 6, 7, they don't know much about what they're doing at that age. They recite, but they don't understand what they're exactly doing. As they grow older, then they start to appreciate and learn more. However, in Fatima's case, we never put pressure on her. It was something that, like Shahid mentioned, you know, she was God gifted, she was talented, and this was something that she enjoyed doing. So it's very important that you have to enjoy what you do. It's like when we go to work. If we don't enjoy our work, we're not going to have a good time, are we? But if you enjoy doing something, whether it's reciting or at work, then you will give you 100% there. You want to do it more and more. And this was the case with Fatima. The only issues we had around it was trying to balance her education with it. So it's a fine balance. You know, you have to have your education on one side, where she didn't miss anything. She carried on with her education as any normal child would. But the extra pressures of reciting were brought on herself because she wanted to do it. She wanted to do it. So in that sense, we were happy to go along with that.
I think that, if I can just cut in as well, I think, which is quite, I mean, hopefully I'm saying it with respect, but you would only push them as much as the talent they had. So for example, you know, if somebody's this good, then you're only going to put them in environments that they can handle. I mean, I have been reading the questions in the chat as well. And for me, there's a bigger power out there that looks after you. You know, when and I've always said this, you know, when you sing their praises, they will sing yours as well.
100%.
That's a great point. But Mahmood, like you talked about, like obviously showing the interest, they have to show the interest as well. But at what point did you know that Fatima, or how did you know at that age that Fatima had the interest? Like, or when did you spot that?
Like Shahid said, from a very early age, Fatima, alhamdulillah, she's got an eye for an ear for music. If you know what I'm trying to say to you,
the melodious side of things.
You know, from the age of 3 or 4, you know, and we notice it because Shahid also recited, I recite, so we know, you know, when you see something that's unusual or out of the ordinary, you know that you've got something there. You know, and that just developed. But she has had support, she has had guidance, and I would rather Fatima talk about that guidance and support that she's had from other, apart from us.
That's
parents.
something I wanted to ask.
That's something that Fatima can touch on as well.
I mean, before we move on to guidance, obviously, you know what? It's something that, you know, when people want to get to know about you, they always want to go back at the start. You know, obviously, as your dad just said, it's not just himself and Shia that influenced you. But at such a young age, what was there that time that, or certain individuals in the industry that made you want to get into this? What was the drive, the kind of thing that just made you go for it?
Fatima, do you want to respond to that regarding inspiration and that?
Yeah, I mean, I think from a very young age, I mean, I think you guys touched on it in your previous podcast. When we were children, we used to listen to cassettes in the car. And I think one track that I used to listen to, I used to get into the car and I used to say, put that on. And I think that was Nadeem Sarwar. And I think, you know, he's the founder of studio recordings and things like that. So that's the number one inspiration. Second inspiration is going to sound really cliche, but my parents and my family, of course. But I think, like my dad touched upon earlier, Shahid uncle, Shahid Baltistani, I think without him and his guidance and his mentoring, I wouldn't be where I am today. And honestly, it's, you know, he's played such an integral part, you know, of my early life in terms of recording. I mean, I recorded my first studio album, I think, when I was about 11 years old. And he was the driving force behind that. You know, I think he said to my dad, I think you need to get this girl on a CD. And that's how it happened, you know? And so, yeah, I mean, he's very, very integral to my upbringing as well. And, you know, we still keep in touch with him. He still has an input into the albums and the kalams and the compositions that, you know, we still do. And also, Mir Hassan, Mir uncle, you know, I've had the privilege, alhamdulillah, I'm so grateful to be able to sit down with these such experienced Noha Khans, have them listen to me, have them mentor me. You know, I've had the privilege of composing, you know, Ilayya Ya Bunayya with Mir Hassan uncle and Raza Basaidi. And honestly, that is something that I will forever be grateful for, you know, because as a young child, to know that these people, they want to mentor you, they want to listen to you, they're giving you advice, you know, they really, really took me under their wing. And I think they are definitely my biggest inspirations to date. Definitely. And I think for many youngsters, not just for myself, but I'm sure, you know, Misam Abbas, you'll agree that, you know, Mir Hassan, Mir, they're all very integral to the style that we recite today as well.
Definitely.
So yeah, those I think are my biggest inspirations for sure.
Fatima, I'm going to put this question because it's relating to what we're talking about now, isn't it? Like, well, it was just before we sort of moved on to influences. But, and I'm sure Mahmood, uncle and child can touch upon this as well. If a child wants to practice, where Abadi Ismail is asking, if a child wants to practice, where do they start? Do they need to be fluent in Urdu? And what is the potential for writing English Naat Nohas by Abid Bata? What would you, so basically, let's go to the first question. If a child wants to practice, where would they start? And do they need to be fluent in Urdu? And this is something that we can touch upon because we also know that, you know, Urdu isn't not your first language. So you can expand on that as well.
Yeah. So, I mean, like you just said, Urdu isn't our mother tongue. You know, it was Kachi that was spoken around the house. And I mean, no, I wouldn't say that a child needs to be fluent in order to start reciting, not at all. Because, I mean, the accent, the words, the pronunciation of words, that all comes with experience. Like, I was 6 years old when I started reciting. I probably never heard a word of Urdu, or never understood a word of Urdu, you know? And that came with experience, that came with time, that came, and even still today, like, there's some things that, you know, are so what's the word that I'm looking for? They're difficult to understand, you know, because there's so much out there, so many diverse ways of writing poetry, that I feel, you know, it's going to take a long time for anybody to fully understand. Yeah. So no, I definitely don't think they need to be fluent in Urdu. I mean, if they have a passion for it, what I would say is, if there's one kalam that they particularly like, play it on repeat. Keep listening to it, and they will pick it up themselves, because when somebody has a passion for it, they want to do it. So yeah, I think that's my answer in response to that question. The first part of the question, if a child wants to practice, where do they start? I think from my experience, like, you know, we've said many times, I was blessed to grow up in an Azadari household, whereby I could turn to my dad for practice. I could turn to, you know, my brother for practice. And like I said, I had, alhamdulillah, these very experienced mentors that were happy to, you know, teach me. I mean, there are platforms out there for children that, you know, want to recite and, you know, want to nurture this passion. And I think one of the key points I'll mention here, I think it ties in really well, and you guys have mentioned before as well, is YAD, Youth Azadari Drive, which is basically an initiative that Stanmore, you know, there's, I think, a couple of pioneers, Abdul Uncle Virji, Suhail Uncle Chauhan, Zinat Auntie Virji in the ladies side of it, you know, and that's really where I think is a good place to send your child, to bring out their confidence, to nurture that passion that they have, because essentially that's what you're doing. You know, you're nurturing that passion, you're allowing them to express themselves. And also these children are taught kalams for programs, so they then have the opportunity to go and recite at these programs. You know, Yad specifically in the ladies section, they do Shab Pursa, they have Jashan Zahra, and this is where the children are nurtured, and they're practicing these kalams for weeks on end in order to then be able to go and recite at these functions. And I think every community needs to have something like that. Hats off to them for the work that they do. You know, alhamdulillah, I'm very, very honored to be a teacher as well in the ladies yard section, and I'm very happy that, you know, they gave me that privilege when I moved to London. But I think, yeah, every community needs to take an initiative like that. I mean, I know Birmingham, I think we did start something. I think Peterborough have an Azadari drive as well, if I'm not mistaken. So I think if that foundation is there, then it's especially important to send your child to places like this where they can practice. If not, then let them just do it. And as a parent, you try and sit with them, you try and encourage them, you know, because that support as a child is vital. When you're encouraged and when, you know, you're appreciated, you will want to do it more, and that flame will burn even more, if that makes sense.
Of course.
Yeah.
Of course.
Yeah.
That's
Sorry,
very
I waffled a bit
beautifully
there,
said.
but I hope you
No,
got it.
there's no need to say sorry. At the end of the day, that's what we want to know, you know, because, you know, you might say sorry there, but it's very important piece of information and guidance for people out there that do actually want to get into this. And I think I'd like to turn to Shahid in regards to that as well. Obviously, more on the side of Sangat, you know, what kind of piece of advice would you give on that side? Obviously, we've seen you, you know, we've started at a young age. We've seen you, the way you've dealt with matters, the way, you know, we've looked up to you and how we've progressed as well. But for people out there, obviously what Fatemah answered, what would you kind of advise for people out there in terms of more of the Sunnat side?
I think there's three things really. The first is always keep stretching and challenging yourself. So whatever position you're in, you know, and it's not just necessary to reciting, in whatever ventures you undertake, you know, don't stop, keep stretching yourself, keep challenging, and naturally you'll improve. I think more specific to this, you have to be passionate, because if you don't have the passion, then you're not going to succeed. But with passion comes commitment. So this isn't something that you're going to pick up for a year and then stop and say, well, actually, I've done it now. This, like I said, you know, and that's been mentioned a couple of times, it's actually an obligation that once we pick up, we can't ever drop again.
Yeah.
And I think the third is really the intention. As long as you're clean, the niyat is clean, it's pure, and always remembering that at the end of the day, you are serving as a servant to the Ahlul Bayt. I can't see those, anything really going wrong. I mean, Fatima, there was a question in terms of where do you start? You don't have to recite in front of public just to do the zikr. You can recite in your own room, just because maybe you guys recite, in terms of in a public domain. Really, that doesn't mean anything. That doesn't mean ours is more any better, or it's appreciated more, or it's accepted. Zikr will continue whether we do it or not. It'll happen in every corner of the world.
100%, yeah.
MashaAllah.
Shahid, can you, I know you mentioned it sort of in the answer you just gave, but Hussein just asked here, which everyone can see on the screens now. First of all, thank you, Abid Bhai, for Abid Uncle, for sending your question in, and Hussein, thank you for sending this question in as well. I wanted to ask Shahid, this is from Hussein Reji. Shahid and Abbas, from a purely technical perspective, how do you guys implement your Sangat practice work, especially with synchronity and coordination in a large group? Jazakallah. Thanks Hussein for the question. Guys, before I try to answer these questions, I just want to say, we appreciate all the comments and all the support that we're seeing, on my screen right now. And I'd really appreciate if you just hit that subscribe button and follow us and follow for more content, because there's definitely a lot of things coming in the future. And inshallah, we're going to try and get through all the comments. It's been 51 minutes so far. We'll try our best to get through all the comments, but just give us time. And if we don't, then please forgive us from now. That's all I ask you to do. But yeah, Shahid, please carry on.
I think Abbas, I'll touch on it, but I think you're better positioned. I mean, in terms of our team, we have about 8 reciters, in terms of based in Birmingham where we recite regularly. We have, we've developed an understanding. We've developed a very similar mindset over the years. And I think when you look at any team game, you've got to have the same mindset, the same thinking levels in order to really achieve. And we say in other aspects of life as well that you're only as good as the weakest member of your team. But I think, like I said, we've been blessed massively with the diversity that we have within us, 7, 8, 9 individuals. We talk about Fatima and the great personalities she's met over the period of time, which have coached her, which have mentored her, which have guided her in the direction she's always traveled in. Misam, Dad, Abbas, we've also met some of the basically industry leaders, if you want to call them. If we talk of poets, Janab Akhtar Hussain Akhtar, we were very close to when he lived here. Misam, your father, again, is a very prominent poet for us at this moment in time. We've met the biggest of Noah Khans in terms of Ansar Party, Shabab Mu'mineen, Ravi Road. So we have seen, and I think it's the more knowledge you gain by spending more time with these people, by pushing your own boundaries in terms of your thinking, in terms of your ability, you will definitely improve. But I think just to specifically answer Hussein's question, it's really Abbas, with the talent that you have, we know we will never be wrong, because you understand things so well, and you've advanced so well in terms of compositions and understanding the foundations. Yes, we practice, but I would say in terms of this question, we have very good leadership, Hussein, and that does come from Abbas in most times. But yes, there are 7 other individuals, and I would like to say all very good Noah Khans within their own remit of their own nature, and it's just practice. Honestly, it's practice and mindset. And I think there's a number of times where, if I give you a scenario A where we may have to practice for 2 hours to get something right, or if I give you a scenario B where literally, because we're all thinking something the same, even though we don't know it, we grasp it straight away. And I think that's really, and practice. And it's, we've been doing it for a number of years. And I think that's what it is. And it leads back to what I was saying before in terms of being committed, having the right intentions. And again, stretching and challenging yourself as well. And I think that probably answers it. But Abbas, if you want to pick up.
No, to be fair, you've covered everything, and I think you're blowing my trumpet a bit too much there. Look, me being, I still consider myself the little one in the group. Like, I'm the youngest there. I have all of us. Yeah. I look up to all 7, 8 other people as, you know, as my elders. And for me personally, I've learned off all my elders in sort of Sangat Nawakani Hussain, so, and everyone watching. So, you know, I've taken habits from them, you know, looked at other big famous Sangat Nawakani groups like Rabi Road, like your Ansar Party, like Shabab Mu'mineen, like Nisar Party, and etc. And, you know, we've learned from them, and, you know, they are like our pioneers to what we're doing today, and even before that. So, you know, we thank them a lot. But yeah, I think I wanted to ask Mahmood uncle a question, but I think we've lost him. So I'll save that question for him. Fatima, I've got a question for you actually.
Yeah.
Which is something that I've really, you know, I really want to know myself, and I'm sure a lot of viewers would love to know this as well. Is your transition from Birmingham to London?
Right.
Yeah. Obviously, being born and bred in Birmingham, being here your whole life. You know, obviously being a female reciter.
Yeah.
You know, we all know that, you know, the females have to get married and leave their, you know, own households. And for you, you've had to not just leave your household, but you have to also leave the place where you've lived all your life, literally, and move to another city. And then also you've married an amazing person, my good friend, Abbas Dagani, which I'm really happy about. So I want you to sort of like expand and sort of give us a bit more information about that transition, that change, and then how you've managed to sort of then go on to release a track with Abbas as well, which was a hit track, which everyone knows, Alhamdulillah Sakka Hai, which is an amazing track. If no one's heard it, then please just type in Sakka Hai. You've got 2 versions. You've got Mahmood Abbas Green's version and you've got Fatima's version. They're both really, really good. Definitely go listen to them. But yeah, give us sort of an insight to how that change was, and, you know, what have you learned, and how did Abbas sort of, you know, how did you react to that change as well?
Yeah, I mean, I think not even just in my position, but changes, it's difficult, right? Especially moving to another city. I think I was very fortunate enough, I mean, on the reciting scene, because I've moved to London, so my new barga is now Stanmore. And I was very fortunate because I had come to Stanmore to recite, so, you know, at the Yad Shab Pursa and the Jashins. So I did know, you know, I knew the crowd here, you know, I knew the reciters. And not long after I got married, it was Muharram. So it was basically full steam ahead, really, you know. And I was very, very blessed that, you know, I was taken under, you know, a lot of people's wings, in the sense that I had the opportunity to recite, be it in the morning ladies majlises or, you know, evening ladies majlises. And I was very privileged and very fortunate enough to have that. In terms of my husband, Abbas, yeah, I mean, I knew that obviously I wanted my spouse, and I think you guys touched on this in a previous podcast. There was a question asked. I wanted, you know, obviously you want your spouse to share the same drive and the same passion and the same flame, you know, that sort of I had for Azadari, because obviously you do move house, you know, you're now under in another home, you're under your husband's umbrella, if that makes sense. And so, yeah, how do you balance that? And I was very fortunate in the sense that, alhamdulillah, Abbas, alhamdulillah, he's so talented, if I may say so, you know, and he had the encouragement of his parents, you know, and, you know, especially his mum. And I'm sure she'd really, really be proud of him. You know, she really encouraged him to recite, and he had that passion as well. So he's been really supportive, in the sense that, you know, Dad Shahid, I'm sure you can attest to the fact that, you know, he'll bring me to Birmingham sort of 3 weekends on the trot for studio recording, you know, or, you know, when I'm recording dummy tracks or anything, or he'll drive me to programs, you know, that 2 hours away, he'll take time off to do that. And he works a lot, so it's a big deal. So I'm very fortunate to have that support, and to have the support system that I do, you know, with my family back home, with my new family, with my husband, and also the community. I'm incredibly, incredibly blessed. And I thank God every day for that, you know. So yeah, in terms of how that worked, I think that answers your question, I hope.
No, 100% it did. And it's just amazing to see that, like, you know, what I've taken on board is, like, you know, you didn't, the way, you know, it's a lesson for all of us actually that are not married yet, is that, you know, you both had to sacrifice, right, for each other. So, like, Abbas welcomed you, you know, you welcomed him, and you both it wasn't an obstacle for you to get past in terms of your recitation as your career. And that I think a lot of people can take from Abbas, like from a male's point of view, that's bringing on a female reciter, in the future as well. That to support, to be there, and the fact that you're both there for each other. And
I mean, just to echo that, I mean, obviously it was something that I thought about, that I thought, okay, what if they don't have this, or they don't share the same interests? But I think this came up before we got married, and I don't know if I've ever told him this or if he remembers, but he said to me, and I hadn't really shared my concerns with him as such, but he said to me, don't ever stop. It's not something that I would ever want you to stop. You and I will carry this on together until the end, basically. And I think that for me was so powerful, because it lifted that burden off my shoulder, you know? Because I do travel a lot. Muharram Safar is incredibly busy, and it is hard balancing that responsibility as a wife and as a daughter. But, for him to say that, it just shows how incredibly lucky I am and how supportive he is. And I'm incredibly blessed.
Alhamdulillah. That's beautiful.
I think Misam and Abbas, you know what to look for in your future spouses then?
Misam's already
married.
Oh, yeah. Sorry, apologies to your wife.
No,
you have to make sure the leading carries on.
Of course, and I mean, that is one thing, and as you grow, you start to realize about these things as well. When you start focusing on the future and everything, it is something that you realize the actual realities of life and the actual things that do matter in life. Mahmood, I've got one question for you in regards, obviously, raising Shahid and raising Fatima into this. And obviously, mashallah, they were so blessed to have the guidance and have the kind of support there to be where they are today. But what kind of guidance would you give to those certain individuals or those kids that don't sadly have that kind of guidance in their houses, or even for those partners that don't probably have the kind of support from their partner in order to make sure that their kid gets to where they want to be? So what kind of guidance? So two perspectives, one as a parent, but even those kids that don't have that kind of support.
I think going back, a few years ago, we didn't have the support that we actually needed. Like Fatima's touched on Yad group. We had a group here that we started up for youngsters at mosque. I think most of the Jamaats nowadays do have some form of training or classes that they can go to and recite. So that support is there from a community level already. If it's not there within the household and the child wants to learn, then it is there in the community. So pursue that.
Okay.
We may have Wi-Fi problems. I'm not sure.
Internet.
I think we lost Mahmood there. But yeah, for sure, pursuing it is a big thing. And you know what? Let's meet somebody. I think we should get into the questions, because I don't want to lose track of the questions. We'll come back to that when Mahmood Chacha comes back. We've got some comments here from Fidget. ARPAs are fantastic. You're always so in sync. Really feel it when I hear you guys recite. And also Fatima, thank you. We appreciate the comments. Thank you so much for commenting. Yusuf Khalil Kera has commented as well here. MashaAllah. Bless you all abundantly. Great topics being covered. Can you guys hear me? Yeah. Thanks, Yusuf. Thanks. That's another amazing talent from London.
Definitely.
A young talent as well.
Can I just add, he is phenomenal, in his sort of perseverance and his passion for it. He's going to go a long way, and we're also proud of him as well, for sure.
For sure. And another great talent, as long as a lot of other talents that we have in the UK now. And the thing is, this is something that I've noticed as well, and Fatima, I think this is like something that you should take credit for as well, being like sort of in the UK, I'd say like one of the first female reciters I've seen that started like sort of that from a young age. I've noticed now that in the UK, I feel like there's a lot more young reciters that have come on the scene now than there was before. Like we've got your Yusuf Ali Okeras, you've got Misam Ali Mehdi, Misam Heather that's here as well. Who else? there's definitely more. I'm missing some names, but there's definitely more. Bubba Jaffrey as well from Northampton. A lot of, I don't want to say that it's become a trend, because that wouldn't be the right word. But is this something? Is this a new thing is this sort of a new generation that we should be sort of welcoming? And is this good going forward? Fatima?
Yeah, definitely. Because I mean, this generation is what's going to carry it on. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I think in the sense that Zikr Muhammad Wali Muhammad is something that's always going to carry on, and we need to nurture the youths of our community in order to be able to continue. Because I mean, from what I can say is that I guess when people aren't sort of given the response, they tend to shy away from it, because it does take a lot to put yourself out there and to recite in front of a crowd. It does take a lot, and confidence plays a big part in it as well. So when they don't get the response that that we should be giving them, they do retract and they do shy away. So I definitely think there are platforms, like I mentioned Yad earlier, great work. There are platforms that are available for children to progress their talents, and I think it is essentially important to continue that, because they are our future generation.
Yeah, very well answered. I've got a comment here from Saika Batul. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for commenting. Really appreciate it. I've grown up listening to you. Mahmood, are you still there? We got you?
Yeah, I'm back. I'm sorry, I'm having problems with the network, but I am back. I'm back with you.
Okay, we can come back to that question that where you at before. Let's let Fatima answer this question first. Sure. I've grown up listening to you. What advice do you have for young girls? Now, I think this is an interesting question.
It's a pretty loaded question. I mean, there's so many avenues that you can, take to that, so many different angles. Okay, so I think I get asked this a fair bit, and I've kind of come up with my own kind of answer to it. And it's the 3 P's, as I like to call them. And it's perseverance, practice, and prayer. Literally, that's all you need.
You just sound like Shahid. You just sound like Shahid.
Well, he's my brother. But no, that is literally what I would say to young girls. I mean, you need to persevere. I mean, in the sense that you're going to start. Obviously, it takes a lot of experience to get to ultimately where a lot of people want to be. And so perseverance is key. And practice as well. Continuously practice. If you like something, keep listening to it. Keep reciting it. Even if you're reciting just to your family, you're doing something, then you'll build up the confidence to go and recite in the mosque in front of a crowd. And I think prayer is definitely key. I think that's self-explanatory, because whatever we are doing is Mawla Karam, and we need to essentially rely on them as well. And I think that's my answer.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, it is their God.
Exactly, yeah.
I think we should go back to Mahmood uncle and then finish up with that question.
Yeah, so support for individuals who haven't been brought up in an Azadari environment. We have touched on this, and Fatemah's touched on it as well. There are platforms within the community you can go to, to gain that advice and support, or speak to individuals. We're here, you know of us. There's Abbas, yourself, Meesam, Fatima, myself. Just call us up and say, listen, my son wants to do this, or my daughter wants to do this. How can you guide them? We're all here. Everybody needs to start somewhere. Just like Shahid uncle, Shahid Balkistani started off with Fatima and helped her move along. Definitely. Times have moved on now, so there is enough people here, talented individuals within the UK who can guide you as well nowadays. It's just a matter of picking up that phone and making that initial conversation and saying, listen, I need a bit of help. Can you please help me? Can you guide me? So we are all here to help, and we're all available for you guys.
And just to echo that, we as reciters, we get our slots, we recite a lot. If we know that there's somebody with the potential, somebody that say we've been training, or somebody we know wants to recite, wants to further that passion, give them that slot. you know.
Good.
Yeah.
Because we recite all the time, you know, alhamdulillah, we do have that opportunity, and this is how we help our youth, you know, we further them as well, because they need to be given that platform to think, oh, okay, you know, they want to hear me, or I better practice, and you know, when they're given a slot. So I think that's another thing that we as youth can take on and do as well. I think that's really important.
That's a massive point, actually.
Yeah, Mason, we touched upon this as well. Like, opportunity in the UK is very low.
I think it is, and I think that's because the responsibility the crowd carries at the same time as well, which is something very significant as well and plays a massive role. You know, we spoke about these kind of foundations. You know, luckily we spoke about Qasr Abu Talib, the kind of foundation we had. To which, I mean, alhamdulillah, I am a solo reciter today, you know, where my dad just put me on the stage random. And if it wasn't for Qasr Abu Talib, maybe I wouldn't have been a solo reciter. So, yes, there are certain things. And I think I kind of like to go back to that kind of question to Shahid as well. I mean, you know, you seeing that kind of upbringing in your own household, and obviously being a married man now and being a father as well, mashallah now, where do you see all this in the future, and the kind of guidance for kids out there?
I mean, it's a difficult question. I mean, in terms of children, you know, our scholars tell us that we have to transmit as a dari within our generations to come. You know, it's a very important factor of our religion. You know, we find Islam through Karbala. So, you know, I think in terms of our children, yes, you know, we have to keep this momentum. You know, you talk about there's more and more names appearing. That is because it's the mission of Hussein, isn't it?
Yeah.
You know, the mission of Hussein will continue to grow.
Definitely.
So, you know, it's something that we have to continue. Misam, just remind me on what the question was again. Sorry, in terms of the first part of it.
Oh, it was obviously basically just, I mean, what your dad was speaking about as well in general, people that don't have the kind of guidance, you know, especially with, you know, the Sangat level, you can kind of relate. Yes, a lot of families out there, they'll be listening to CDs and everything, but you won't see a lot of people towards the Sangat side as well. So, I mean, equally as solo recitation, you know, we have, mashallah, a lot of solo reciters in there, but in terms of group recitation, you know, that trend to make sure that trend carries on as well, and people, the new generation, stay interested in that as well.
I mean, I think talent is a big thing, and it's a big topic. You know, personally, I would say, you know, we have found some very good talent. You know, and you guys have grown up, and you guys are that talent. The question is, are we seeing enough talent, you know, coming towards us? I'm not sure. But we've got to continue what we do, whether it's solo, whether it's in groups, whatever it is, it's just in different forms. And I would say that we have to spread the message and look to be those role models. You know, in Birmingham, is there a platform? There is. People do come out and find us and reach out. You know, Abbas has again introduced a very good initiative in terms of training. So it's just about being able to open that market up and give people options, really, so that they can hold on to and move forward with.
And just to echo that, if I can add, you know, Shahid, how you were just saying earlier that the message will always carry on because this is what we were put on this earth to do. But I think a key point is also that Ahlul Bayt is our pathway to God. And that's something that will bring us closeness to God. And alhamdulillah, you know, we've been put on this earth to do that zikr. And hopefully, you know, that just brings us closer to God and spreads the messages even further, which is the ultimate maqsad, really.
Yeah, that's a great point. And you know what? We've got Sayyid H. Naqvi. Thank you for your comment. Thank you for tuning in as well. MashaAllah, great podcast and great advice from you all. I'd like to thank APIS as you gave my son an opportunity to recite with you a few times, to speak to the comments. And again, you see what I mean? Like stuff like that. It's those little things. Yeah, it's going the extra step that what you guys have all mentioned before that, you know, could basically spark something in someone's life to take
Abbas, that's what it is, isn't it? We don't necessarily realize the impact we have on people. But it shows that the dimension, the dynamics of the zikr as such, it applies. It's a universal message, isn't it? We say Karbala is humanity. Yeah, it applies to the whole universe. And like I said, it's such a beautiful thing that sometimes subconscious, we don't even realize what we're doing. We may just go to the mosque, we may recite for 10 minutes, we'll be back out and back home. And, we don't understand the impact. And I think it shows how special the message of Karbala is because of the impact it does have, the paths it puts people, people on.
Just to add to that, it brings people together as well. I mean, we're Shia Muslims, we do as a Dari, this is what we do. But really, you don't need to be a Shia, you don't need to be a Sunni to
very true.
Imam Hussein. And you just need to have a heart, really, to do that. And I think that's very important because that's what we do as well. That's comes with the territory, you want to bring people together. And there's different ways now, more so that we're catering for people to do that, different styles of matam, different languages. But I think in essence, just to echo what Shahid said, it is about bringing people together no matter who you are, where you're from, and I think that's very, very important as well.
Sorry to cut you off, but the thing is as well is we have to understand that we're doing this with with the full sort of like we're doing it with sincerity, knowing that we're doing this for Abdullah and his family. The way we portray ourselves in terms of allowing people to give opportunities, the way we need to sort of live our lives in this sort of career should be that way as well. Like learning of Karbala, we need to remember that our intentions have to be clean, our sincerity's got to be there, and the way we have to sort of, it's not for ourselves. We need to give back to the youngsters, give back to people after us.
True.
The way we live our lives should be, it should be consistent, right? You can't be of Mom saying and then not, give people who are, waiting for the opportunity to give them a chance to recite as well. So, Shahid, you can carry on.
No, that's fine. That's it. I think you summarized it very well.
Thanks for the comment, H. Nukwi. Look, guys, we've got about 15 minutes left, so I got a couple of questions. One for Mahmood Chacha. And one for Fatima, leading on to her, maybe potentially reciting as well. Mahmood Chacha, a question for you is from Yusuf. I'm gonna bring it up here. Thanks for the comment again, and thanks for tuning in, Yusuf. Do you think there's a specific time you should start studio recordings? I myself started because of advice from elders like Mahmood and Co, but I think it's something which is being done without effort.
It's a very good question.
It's a very good question, and Fatima knows and Shahid knows as well, and Shahid has the same views on this as what I do. If you are not ready for studio recordings or getting out an album, then please don't do it. You have to be 110% sure that the public will receive you really well, because that first impression when you make an album, don't forget that album is going out in the world. It's going on the net. Everybody's going to listen to you. So you have to be 110% sure that you are up to scratch, and this is something that you can do. We recite at home, we recite at mosques, but recording an album is a totally different kettle of fish.
I think that's what it is, isn't it? I think a lot of people see it and think, it's not too difficult if we've done it. But, I'm somebody that doesn't get involved in the front line of the logistical operations that takes place sort of in prepping for the CD. Yes, I will be there with Fatima throughout her vocals all the way. But guys, the message is it's not easy. The amount of hours, the amount of telephone calls, the amount of Skype calls, the amounts of WhatsApp calls, the amount of calls to the 10 different poets that are going to write your 10 different kalams, the 10 different composers that are going to compose, then everything else, your advertising, your marketing, your branding, your distribution, it's literally like a half-a-year project. And I think for us, when we went and actually experienced, which is another massive discussion that we can have, but I think maybe in 2007, when we actually experienced the process of recording Fatima's first album, it's literally a different world, guys. It's mesmerizing. It's phenomenal what has to go in, what goes in, the things you learn, the whole, it's like a hidden world. And I think Yusuf, again, salam to you, fantastic talent. And I would probably put you in somebody who needs to be doing it quite quick in terms of the studio recordings. But I think, and again, it's not to turn anybody away. It is something that you have to be really, really ready for in terms of your preparations, and it's something that it takes a big part of your time and effort.
The more effort you put in, the more reward you're going to get out of it. It's all about practice and time.
Definitely.
And it's like anything else. The more effort goes into it, the end product is just as good. So they never rush into it. Seek advice. If you think you need guidance, then come to us. We'll guide you through it. Misam, Abbas, they've done recordings themselves in the studios. So it's like Shahid said. I'll echo Shahid's words. It's not an easy thing to do, and people don't know exactly how much effort goes into it. But it is, like Shahid said, 6 months' work, if not more. Touching on poetry. Imagine, like, right now, Muharram's coming up. Everybody, all the Nawakans are stressed, tensed out, recording albums right now. And you're talking not, 500 albums. You're talking thousands of albums been recorded.
Yeah.
Now, just moving on from there, on a poet's perspective or a Nawakan's perspective, we are always looking at new ideas, new concepts when we write kalams. New things that we're going to write on. What shall we write on next year? I've done this already. What can I recite next year? What my topic's going to be. So imagine all these things in your mind going on all the time. So it's a thinking process right the way through, and then it's a case of saying that sometimes you make a composition or the Shia writes for you. It will happen when it's gonna happen. If it's not there, if the willingness is not there, it will not happen. Like Shahid said, it's all up to the Ahlul Bayt. When the Ata comes, and it will come straight away. If it's not going to come, it's not going to come today. It's going to come tomorrow. So you have to wait your turn until that call comes to you.
Yeah.
But Alhamdulillah, but it's very rewarding at the end of it. It's stressful, but at the end, it's very rewarding as well. So Alhamdulillah,
Mahmood Chacha, a bit off topic here. Yeah, in regards to your sports abilities, is amazing. Just want to put it out there. Thanks to Abbas for the comment. Just want to put it out there. Respect to the effort you guys are putting in. A few years ago, I played him in a squash tournament after he had a full night of audition before. Shows his dedication. Did you win that tournament?
I can't honestly remember.
More than likely, you probably did.
Yeah. Abbas, I'm sorry. I think you might have lost that tournament. No. Honestly, the thing is about Misam. We spoke about this many of times. Yeah. The thing is, you guys have to understand about studio and live. It's two different things. It's not the same thing. Being good at live necessarily doesn't mean you're good at studio. Being good at studio doesn't mean you're good at live. It's two different things. I know vocalists that are very, very, very good in studio, but when it comes to live, they're not as good. I know people that are very good live at studios. It's two different things. So I think what Mahmood said, definitely take that on board. Make sure you do it when you're ready, because as soon as something goes out there to the public eye, that's what's going to stay there forever, and that's on your back. I know it's not for image and stuff, but you don't want to basically give people what's not your best. Pretty much that's what I'm trying to say. So put in the work.
At the end of the day, it's another responsibility. So when you're obviously displaying and putting it out there in public, I wouldn't say competition in that kind of sense, but it is your kind of responsibility as well to make sure that, because for the sake of Zikr Muhammad wa Ali Muhammad, whatever you're producing in their respects and in their kind of in their shan, that you make sure that it's all above 100%. You want poetry that's 100%. You want a composition that reflects that poetry. Then your own kind of performance, whether that's in the studio or on the stage. I think your ideology, not in terms of competition, but just to please yourself and the kind of do justice to the zikr as well, is you always need to have a perfectionist kind of ideology. Make sure that you're always overachieving and you're always doing best, whether that's with your riyaz in the morning, whether that's with anything.
Yeah.
And I think that's where it comes back to what Shahid said at the start as well, in terms of with Sangat, the discipline and the things that you learn. And I think that's with everything that you do, you might learn certain things from Sangat, Noakhani or solo, but I mean, studio is something that it's something very, very complex. it's a completely different field. So yes, of course, the people out there that are doing this, mashallah, keep it up. And of course, those that are trying, inshallah, Mullah gives you help and, you know, great results. But yes, definitely, that's true. I think we've got a lot of other questions left now.
Yeah, we've got a lot of questions, but guys, unfortunately, we can't go through all the questions today because, you know, because of the time. The only thing, time is of essence. You know, this live stream is only up for a certain amount of time, so I really do want to try and fit all the questions, but you know, I might not be able to get in all the questions, so just please forgive me if I can't get your question in. Forgive me. Yusuf says, I can never thank you all enough for giving me the support and encouragement since day one. Honestly, it would be good if one of you could end with a short recitation. And I think, look, we all know that who our special guest is today. And that's only one person. And Fatima, look, we've got a request here from, where was it gone? From S.A. Ali. Please start Sakai Haram. But before you start Sakai Haram, I want you to talk about, obviously, your 15th album's coming out.
Yeah.
Alhamdulillah. Yeah.
Alhamdulillah.
I want you to maybe give it like an insight about that journey and how that, you know, how that's gone.
Yeah.
And also maybe give us a little teaser that you can offer, if that's possible. I don't know, Mahmood, is that possible or?
Yeah, alhamdulillah, inshallah, yes. Inshallah, yeah.
Okay, yeah. So yeah, and also not even that, but like obviously experiences of doing 15. I don't think we touched upon that properly.
Yeah.
The first 3 or 4 albums, you also went to Karachi as well.
Yeah, it was, I think the first 7 or 8 actually.
Oh wow, first 7 or 8. So like, you know, going to Karachi, you know, being born and bred in the West here. Yeah, exactly. That's a massive change, and that's something that's completely different. It's a different sort of environment, different experience. Just touch upon that, and then obviously, you know, build up to your recitation if you can.
Okay, so yeah, alhamdulillah, like you said, we've got my 15th album coming out soon, Muharram time. And I think for the last couple of years, obviously, because I've been in London and, you know, my family are in Birmingham, it's been difficult trying to obviously make that time to go back and forth, because obviously we record vocals in Birmingham. Majority of the work my dad does. So all credit where credit is due, because it is dad that puts in the sleepless nights and the effort, you know, talking to poets and composers and figuring out artwork and everything. You know, it's a very complex process. So yeah, I mean, in terms of that, it has been a bit of a change, but we have managed. So I'll talk a little bit about Sakai Haram in specific. I think this is, out of all the 15 albums that I've done, and I don't know how many tracks that is, this is the one that I'm most connected to. I don't know what it is about it. I don't know whether it's the fact I recited it with my husband, which is another, you know, really lucky thing that I was able to do. But this is one that I feel very connected to, and I hold it very, very close to my heart. This was actually one I heard a couple of ladies recite when I came to London. You know, Sister Rahana Mauji, Sister Fatima Mauji, really, really talented ladies, very supportive, if I can add, you know, very, very supportive, which I think is another key topic, discussion another day. And that's where Sakai Haram came from, really. In terms of my album coming out this year, I mean, obviously we're in a global pandemic at the moment, and it's been difficult. You know, we won't have majalis at mosque in Muharram. It's going to be very, very difficult. But when you want to do it, it will happen. And the amount of majlises, Zoom, YouTube that are happening right now, it's absolutely phenomenal. And there is one track from the album that we have linked to the pandemic, and it's actually Vada Karo Ke Phir Se Bulaoge Karbala, because that's, you know, we're all trembling at the moment. This is the time that we'd be going to visit Mabdullah, visit Mala Abbas, and we can't right now. And so this is basically a plea. Please call me back. Promise me that you will call me back. And I think that's something how, you know, we've linked to the current pandemic at the moment. And there's also another kalam sort of following on from Sakai Haram, which is Mere Babul Hawaij Karam Kijiye. And that's basically another munajat like Sakai Haram. So yeah, that's just a brief sort of overview of the album this year.
Interesting. Yeah. So, what do you want to give? Do you want to maybe?
Yeah. So okay, I'll start off with Sakai Haram, and then
Okay.
I'll give you a little snippet into the new Munajat of Hazrat Abbas, if that's okay.
Yeah, no problem.
Yeah. Bersakai Sakina, Balfadil Abbas, Bawazi Balan, Salawat.
اللهم صل على محمد وعلى
محمد.
Ya Babi Hawaij Ya Mawla, 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 Sakai Haram رکھ لے نہ بھرم ہم در پہ تمہارے آئے ہیں سکائے حرم رکھ لے نہ بھرم ہم در پہ تمہارے آئے ہیں تم بھی نہیں ہم کو ٹھکرانا ہم دنیا کے ٹھکرائے. And I think this is a verse that is very relevant to right now. اشکوں کی زبان پہچانتے ہو جو دل میں ہے وہ جان اشکوں کی زبان پہچانتے ہو جو دل میں ہے وہ جانتے ہو ہم کہہ نہیں سکتے تم سن لو بس ہاتھوں کو پھیلائے
سبحان اللہ سبحان
کہ عباس عباس یا بالفضل العباس.
سبحان اللہ.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.
And this is just the kalam following on from Sakai Haram, the munajat that we're going to release this year. I'll recite a couple of verses.
Please.
آپ کے در سے خالی نہ کوئی گیا خالی دامن مرادوں سے بھرتا گیا ہے لیکن سخاوت کا قائم بھرم جس نے جو کچھ بھی مانگا اسے وہ ملا جس نے جو کچھ بھی مانگا اسے وہ ملا میرے باب الحوائج کرم کیجیے میرے باب الحوائج کرم کیجیے دور مومن کے سینوں سے غم کیجیے میرے باب الحوائج کرم کیجیے میرے باب الحوائج کرم کیجیے اس یتیمہ کا ہے آپ کو واسطہ جس کے گوہر چھنے جس کا دامن جلا مومنہ بیٹیوں کا ہو آباد گھر نیک اولاد औलाद हो जाए सबको अता, नेक औलाद हो जाए सबको अता, मेरे बाबुल हवाइज
सुभान अल्लाह
कीजिए, मेरे बाबुल हवाइज करम कीजिए. And last verse. मेरे गाज़ी अलमदार शाहे वफा है ज़ियारत के मुश्ताक अहले अज़ा, तेरी आका की चौखट पे सजदा इस्तिग़ासा करे बर सुरे करबला, इस्तिग़ासा करे बर सरे करबला, मेरे बाबुल हवाइज कीजिए, मेरे बाबुल हवाइज करम कीजिए. पर मोहम्मद व आले मोहम्मद सलावत.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.
MashaAllah. That was very, very beautifully recited,
so
mashallah.
Thank
And
you.
you know, you coming towards the end, even with the poetry, it was such a beautiful dua towards the end, you know, in terms of with the neek aulad as well. You know, a great message and a great dua for obviously our future, for the next generations coming up, that are going to be, you know, making sure that this maqsad and this message is being spread across the globe. And, you know, unfortunately, we haven't been able to answer every question or touch up upon every comment that has been said. And we're really, really sorry to those people that had questions and we left them unanswered. Inshallah, you'll be able to get involved in our next podcast. But, you know, it's been really, really amazing having you guys over. You know, thank you, Fatima. Thank you, Mahmood Uncle. Thank you, Shahid, for taking our invitation and, you know, making this podcast so amazing, speaking about so many different things. And I know there's lots of things that we could have spoken about, lots of things that, you know, we may have even thought about beforehand and we didn't really go into them. And, you know, you never know, inshallah, there might be a part 2 with you guys. You never know, get you guys come on soon. So those that didn't get enough, inshallah, there'll be a second time, and inshallah get involved in the next podcast as well. Just before we do end everything, and I think as Mahmood Uncle is here, and you know, him being the senior, just before we conclude and finish off, I think that if you could do this in Urdu as well, you know, हमारे पास आज काफी मुझे लगता है उर्दू ऑडियंस भी थी और उनको हमने इस तरह मुखातब नहीं किया, तो एक आप अगर एंड पे आप मुख्तसर सा, ज़ाहिर आप सीनियर भी हैं, तो उस हिसाब से आप एक जो एंड पे होता नहीं कि एक मैसेज देना चाहें, your way of concluding to those people, तो अगर आप उर्दू में कुछ अल्फाज बोल दें प्लीज.
हाँ नहीं, बहुत बहुत शुक्रिया. देखो जो आप कर रहे हैं, मैं तो पहले आपको कंग्रेचुलेट कहना चाहूंगा कि आप लोगों ने माशाल्लाह बहुत ही अच्छा काम कर रहे हैं, आप दोनों, और मेरे बच्चे की तरह हैं. आप अब्बास और मीसम दोनों आप मेरे बच्चे की तरह ही हैं, तो माशाल्लाह बहुत अच्छा काम कर रहे हैं. और मौला आपके इस जिक्र का इंशाल्लाह इजाफा करेंगे इसको, और आपके तौफीकात में भी इजाफा करें. बस मैसेज यही है बच्चों के लिए जो यंगस्टर्स हैं कि भाई देखो, ये ऐसा जिक्र है कि आप लोगों को ही आगे लेके जाना है. ठीक है ना भाई, हम तो आज हैं कल नहीं है, तो हमारे बच्चे हैं, आप हैं, आपके इंशाल्लाह आपके बच्चे भी होंगे इंशाल्लाह. तो ये जिक्र जारी होना चाहिए, और भाई मौला के करम से इंशाल्लाह आगे बढ़ता ही रहेगा ये ना, तो ये रुकने वाला तो है ही नहीं. और कोई भी रुकावटें हैं आपकी जिंदगी में, कोई रुकावटें आले हर्डल्स आएंगे और यकीनन आते रहते हैं, तो इसको बस बीवी की दुआ से अल्हम्दुलिल्लाह सब कुछ अच्छा ही होता है ना. तो बस वही कर्म करने वाले हैं, और वो इंशाल्लाह आपका साथ देंगे ना. तो बहुत बहुत शुक्रिया, आपने हमें बुलाया पॉडकास्ट पे, आपका शुक्रिया अदा करना चाहेंगे अब्बास, आपका, मीसम का, और अबू को भी मेरा सलाम देना. ठीक है ना.
जरूर नहीं आप सबका बहुत शुक्रिया.
Thank you so much for having us.
Thank you guys.
Thank you so much. Really enjoyed it and a real honor. So thank you.
you.
And keep up the good work, guys.
It was our pleasure, and thank you, Fatima, for joining us. Thank you, Shahid. Thank you, Mahmood Uncle. Thank you so much for joining us. You know, I want to reiterate what Muslim said, that we didn't get to, go through all the comments, and we apologize for that. But definitely, I think in the future, if Fatima agrees, we can have another part 2, definitely in the near future. Guys, I want to say we're going to end off here now. We've gone slightly over than we had planned to, but it's no problem because we did have a special guest today. I want you guys to, please give any suggestions that you have going forward for us. Leave it in the comments below. Message us privately, me and some. Let us know if you have any sort of guests that you'd like us to bring on, any sort of other ways we can do this podcast. We're open to any suggestions, and I'd like to say thank you so much. Thank you for all your comments. Thank you for all the support in the comments as well. And we really, really do appreciate it, and it motivates us, and we hope that you're benefiting from these podcasts as much as we are. Thank you very much. Stay subscribed, like this, share this. There's been some great points from our elders here, and definitely tune in on the next one, which will be very soon, inshallah. Take care, guys. Thank you very much. Assalamu alaikum. Ya alayhi Islam.